Hello everybody and welcome to NASCAR Dirt to Daytona, revamped by NCR Designs. Yes, much like NASCAR Thunder 2003, I have a texture pack for NASCAR Dirt to Daytona when you run it on Dolphin, which is the GameCube emulator. So I had mentioned way back when I first was doing NASCAR Thunder 2003 as a one-off, I had mentioned how good Dirt to Daytona was. A lot of you guys have mentioned it in the comments, and in fact, just the other day, I was on my YouTube comment section, and someone had brought up similarities to the fact that there was no manufacturer representation in this game, and we started talking about how great this game is, and it made me really want to play it. So here we are in NASCAR Dirt to Daytona. Now yes, the base game didn't have representation for manufacturers much like NASCAR 09, but they were kind of shaped to look like it. However, this version does have representation. Let's go ahead and jump to this menu, shall we? So in Dirt to Daytona, you have single race, beat the heat, which is kind of like their scenario situation, a pro trainer, championship, multiplayer, unlockables, and then you have ratings, options, and to save. Now the unlockables in this game were cool because they were just silly. It was, you know, there was hardcore physics at the bottom, but like, oh dear, for instance, at the bottom, it replaced a car with a giant person. Makes no sense, but it's great. There is also a career mode where you manage a car through all series, which is pretty cool. Speaking of all series, well before EA figured out how to do it, this game had a ton of series. We had the Cup Series, no Busch Series because it was so similar, I'm imagining. We have the NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series, the Featherlite Modified Series, and Dirt, hence the title Dirt to Daytona. It was where I first learned I suck at dirt racing, so let's start with the Cup Series. As you can see here, our drivers now have better looking paint schemes as well as manufacturers on them. So we have Dave Blaney, Jeff Burton, Ward Burton, Kurt Busch, Dale Earnhardt Jr., Jeff Gordon, Robbie Gordon, Hamilton Harvick, Jarrett Kenseth, Labonte brother, Sterling Marlin, Mark Martin, Ryan Newman, Steve Park, Ricky Rudd, Elliott Sadler, Hermie Sadler, Ken Schrader, Mike Skinner, Tony Stewart, Mike Wallace, and Rusty Wallace. That was really my only complaint of this game growing up, is they didn't have a ton of drivers and they didn't have all the tracks. It was the only complaint I ever had, is I did also miss Casey Atwood and John Andretti, which for some reason they're using the Chex car. Not really sure why, but it is what it is. So let's go ahead. Let's jump in as Dave Blaney here. As there is no Pocono in this game, because Pocono was owned independently. And I don't know if it still is, but at least it used to be, and it meant rights were different back then, and it was harder to get a hold of, I guess. And they just never got the rights to it. So let's go ahead, jump in a race at Daytona. We're going to do it for 4 laps. We'll do normal wear. You can do up to 6, which is something. Light damage, we'll go ahead, do that. No breakdowns. We won't turn on any flags, but you can have flags, and we'll turn it up to veteran, which is what I run on NASCAR Thunder 2003.
Welcome to the Sunshine State and the birthplace of NASCAR, Daytona Beach, Florida. Since 1959, a driver's career can be made or broken at Daytona International Speedway. The 2.5-mile tri-oval has served as a proving ground for some of the greatest names in racing. 31 degrees of banking in the turns and incredible speeds on the straightaways have led to the inclusion of restrictor plates here. Aerodynamic drafting has become a must-have skill in order to stay with the pack and master Daytona.
It is crazy seeing the game with these paint schemes in it and manufacturers in it, because it's just not what I had growing up. Now, one thing that they did that I really like, as you'll be able to see here, the AI cars, the fantasy cars, they have been replaced with real-life drivers that were not included in the game. So you have the likes of Shauna Robinson, the 25, the 44, both of the Dodges. As this right here, this is my favorite camera view. This is what I always race in. Got a bumper view, a nice looking cockpit, and then of course our chase cams. Let's go in here. Let's go to my favorite view here. So we go down the back straightaway at Daytona. Yeah, really the only complaint I ever had about this game was the lack of drivers. And honestly, this texture pack kind of makes you realize how many we're missing. Now, because it is just a texture pack, you're not going to see the names replaced. As you can see on the leaderboard on the top left, they're just generic still. So if you don't know the name of the driver, you're not going to see it on the leaderboard, but that's okay. We're working our way through the pack here. I absolutely adore this game. I know for many it's what's their favorite NASCAR game. For me, in terms of favorites, overall, I would give it to Thunder 03. However, I will say this is definitely the game I played the most of as a kid. I absolutely love the physics in this game as Bobby's not going to hold on to it. That was the thing. The AI in this game, to me, it felt much more realistic. It was easier to turn people around, which felt more realistic with how these cars drive, or even if you have played something like iRacing. Yeah, the AI can actually be pretty easy to spin out, and it might be because of that. It actually requires more than one car for a caution to come out. And of course, we have cautions off, but you would actually have to have multiple cars in a crash before the yellow came out, which is something I thought was very cool. So we're bump drafting Sterling Marlin into turn 3 and 4 here. Got Mark Martin up ahead. Gonna dump Marlin here. Go with his go with the Roush cars here. Go with the Ford Power. White flag in the air. Underneath Kurt Busch here, just Mark Martin to go. It's amazing how well, even now, this game looks. Of course, it's being upscaled through Dolphin plus a texture pack, so keep that in mind if you want to play the game yourself. However, it does still just in general look really, really well. Even the mirror, the mirror's better looking than it was in the NASCAR 09 video I did just the other day. And yes, the cheering from the fans. They cheer for you every time you take the lead. As we're underneath Mark Martin there. Well, I guess veteran difficulty allows us to get up to the front easy because we'll take the checkered flag. Now, unlike any of the EA games, you can't actually do a burnout, but they do have a great thing here about unofficial results, the race statistics. They'll give you a big breakdown, and it's one of the reasons I loved this game because it felt much more realistic, it felt much more real, and it was just cooler because you had these statistics and all of this information here. It felt much more like a race broadcast in that sort of way. And it kind of allowed you to take over instead of having to rely on like the MRN voiceover or whatever. You could actually do it yourself. And it was great because this is also actually what you would get under caution. You would get something very similar to this. And you actually would sit through cautions. You could skip them after a little bit, but you actually would sit through the cautions as well, which is another thing that I thought was pretty cool. But let's go ahead and go to the reason why I used to play this game all of the time. Growing up, one of my absolute favorite races was always the Truck Series race at Martinsville, and I would do it so often on Dirt to Daytona. I could do a full race and lap the field by several laps. I had gotten so good at that track. And we're going to go ahead, jump into the Truck Series. You can see these look so incredibly good. You can see they've changed up the what are supposed to be the fantasy drivers, I guess, for the Truck Series because they didn't have many truck drivers. You can see we've got some absolutely beautiful cars, but growing up, I was always a big fan of the number 62 truck in Brendan Gaughan. It's why 62 is actually the number I use whenever I have a choice of number. So we'll go ahead and hop right into Martinsville.
Hello and welcome to a piece of racing history, the Martinsville Speedway in South Central Virginia. Martinsville was opened before NASCAR was even founded. It's one of the sport's original tracks. This paperclip-shaped half-mile has grown from a dusty pioneer to a beautiful racing facility with personality and unique challenges every time.
I mean, this game's also the GOAT for the simple reason it has Alan Bestwick in it, and any game with Alan Bestwick in it is a good game. So here we go. Green flag is out at Martinsville, down into turn 1 for the first time. You can see contact up ahead with the AI. try to get underneath here. Now, again, this is back in 2002. I didn't quite know all of the truck drivers in '02. I actually didn't watch the Truck Series until 2003, and that was because I didn't know really anything about ESPN at the time. I was only 5 years old, and I only ever really watched the Speed channel growing up, so it wasn't until the trucks came to Speed in 2003 that I actually learned about the Truck Series. As you can see, though, the AI race so well here. It's so much fun. I did up the difficulty to champion level, and they provide absolutely great racing here. This AI might be some of my favorite in all of NASCAR video games because they just react to you. They drive really well to themselves. They're competitive. And it's just a shame, really, that EA bought the license for exclusivity to NASCAR games because, you know, competition is very healthy, especially in terms of sports video games. When it goes away, you see what happened with NASCAR gaming, as well as we're seeing now with the likes of 2K and NFL. So just an absolute shame what EA did. But of course, it also led to us getting great games later on, like iRacing. Of course, this wasn't the only game developed by Monster Games for NASCAR. This was probably one of their most memorable titles, but they also developed NASCAR Heat for the PC, which is a great game, as well as a console version, and NASCAR Heat 2002, I think it was called, which was based off the 2001 season, if I'm correct.
Clear high.
Oh, hold on to it. Hey, they held on to it there. Oh, son of a bitch came down on me. I did get him, so I guess that's fair. Being much more aggressive than I would, obviously, if this was a 250-lap race. But when you only got a couple laps, you got to go when you got to go here. And up to 21st. Honestly, that's not bad. And again, we don't have full damage on. If we did, I actually did a race here. It was one of the first times I attempted to do a full 250-lap race here at Martinsville. And I was so fast, but I didn't know how to take care of the car, and I had damage, and I came down pit road to fix it, and I had to sit there for, it felt like an hour. It was probably 5-ish minutes. But that's another thing I like about this game. They don't magically fix the car when it's beat all to hell. If you want it fixed, you go into your pit and you sit there. You think about what you've done to that car and lose time on the track. And it's those little types of things that I truly, truly love about this game. And one of the reasons it still holds up so well, its realism, its physics, and its driving experience still hold up today. I mean, they're definitely better than NASCAR 09 that I just took a look at, or NASCAR 21. I mean, and definitely better than quite a few EA titles. Here we go, across the line. We made our way up to 19th. Not bad, honestly, as... what was that? That's Morgan Shepherd behind us. So, not bad at all. And just look at how cool these trucks look with actual manufacturers on it. Because that's one of the things in EA. They never had manufacturers on the trucks. They did on Cup and Nationwide, I guess, and Busch at the time. But after a while, they got rid of it. But they never had the actual manufacturers on the trucks. So this is really cool to actually see it with it on there. One of my other absolute favorite things to do was the Whelen Modified series. Now, they didn't have any real cars or drivers in the game. They also didn't have any real tracks in the game for it, but that's okay. Now, we had a couple. We had Richmond, Martinsville, and New Hampshire, but otherwise it was fake tracks. We have Welch Valley, which is actually one of my favorite road courses of all time. I wish somebody would put it in like NASCAR Racing 2003 season or something like that. It was always one of my favorites. Crystal Lake, Denison, Elk River, and Mankato, I believe. Now, certain tracks like Denison, those might sound familiar if you've played another game developed by Monster Games, which is Test Drive Eve of Destruction, a game I've actually covered on this channel if you want to take a look at it. That is one of my favorite games, and in it they actually use some of the same locations, not to the necessary same extent, but they do use them in terms of being the location and the assets around it, which I think is pretty cool. Now, while I love Welch Valley, Crystal Valley is my favorite. It's about a 1 mile track. I think we gotta go to Denison because it's like Bristol. It's what we gotta do. We're at the Denison Speedrome. No commentary from Alan Bestwick. 20 drivers on the track. Green flag is out. Take a look at this wonderful little bull ring. Now, every track that is made up, all the fantasy tracks, they have no pit road at all, because that's not a factor with this. You just do a race, and if you blow a tire, well, you've blown a tire. Get to the finish or retire. Up to you. Using the high lane, since the AI are mostly on the inside lane here, we can use it here.
5 laps to go.
Now, as a kid, I didn't know what the Featherlite Modified Series was. I mean, to be fair, there still isn't a whole lot of representation for it. It's hard to find sometimes, unless you're looking for it in terms of any sort of TV. But I absolutely loved driving these cars, and when it was eventually added to EA Sports NASCAR games, I was actually perfectly fine, you know, having to work my way through the ranks and spend time in the modifieds. And it was one of those that even when I would buy a team later on, I would still run the modifieds because I absolutely love driving these things. Of course, they're much more different to drive on iRacing. If you've ever driven them on iRacing, very different, but also a ton of fun. As we come to the white flag already, hard to believe this race almost over already. And man, I just can't get over how good this game looks. Seriously, if you have the ability, download this game on Dolphin and get this pack, because it is absolutely stunning. It is gorgeous and such a fun game. So everyone, that'll do it for now. Thank you for joining me for this look back at NASCAR Dirt to Daytona. I will probably return to this game in a video at some point. If you guys wanted to see any sort of series or anything like that, let me know, or if you just want one-off videos. Whether or not I make more videos on it, I will definitely be playing more of this game because it is just so good. Highly recommend. Especially with this texture pack, it is absolutely fantastic. So thank you guys so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, leave a like, subscribe for more racing content. The next season of NASCAR Thunder 2003 starts very soon. Thank you guys so much for watching. I will see you next time. Bye.